Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a paradox that, I swear that it keeps me up at night sometimes. It's this sort of glitch in the matrix of how we view the world.
It really is. It just defies the logic we apply to almost everything else.
Right, because we grow up with this very specific equation in our heads. If you want to be a top surgeon, you go to med school, you study anatomy for a decade.
Sure.
If you want to be a bridge engineer, you master physics. The formula is intelligence plus education equals success. But when you look at money, that equation just completely breaks.
It just falls apart. It's the only field where that happens. You never hear about a janitor, accidentally performing open heart surgery better than a Harvard-trained doctor. That doesn't exist.
Exactly. But in finance, you have literal geniuses. I mean, people who can calculate pi to 100 decimal places who go bankrupt. And then you have people who never took a finance class in their life, maybe worked a blue-collar job, quietly building massive generational wealth.
It feels wrong. It creates a lot of cognitive dissonance. We're conditioned to believe that money is a science.
Spreadsheet.
Right, a spreadsheet. We think it's about complex formulas and market data. So when we see a regular person outperform a genius, our first thought is, oh, it must be luck.
But the research we're diving into today suggests it's not luck at all. We're unpacking insights from The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, and the central idea here is going to make some people relieved and other people very uncomfortable. The premise is, money success isn't about intelligence or knowledge. It is entirely about behavior.
Which is just a massive shift in perspective. We're moving from a hard science to soft skills. Housel argues that doing well with money has a little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave.
Which, I have to be honest, initially comes as a huge relief. Because if the barrier to entry was be a math genius, I would be in big trouble.
Hey, me too.
But hearing that it's about behavior, well, that sounds more accessible.
Where is it? See, that's the trap. You might feel relieved that math isn't the main requirement, but I would argue that behavior is actually much, much harder to master. You can learn a formula in an afternoon. You can memorize interest rates. But trying to control your own dopamine, trying to manage fear, greed, and insecurity when your life savings are on the line, that is a lifelong battle against your own biology.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We aren't talking about stock tips. We aren't talking about interest rates.
No complex calculus.
Definitely not. We are unpacking the mental game. We want to move from thinking about money as a spreadsheet to, well, understanding it as a psychological study.
Precisely. This is a blueprint for rethinking risk and success. And if we do this right, you should walk away not with a better calculator, but with a better mirror.
I love that. Okay, let's unpack this. The source material outlines 5 specific rules that change how we view wealth. Let's start with rule number 1, the myth of logic.
This is foundational, and it's the pill everyone struggles to swallow. We all want to believe we're rational agents. If I asked you how you make a big financial decision, what would you say?
I'd say I look at the price, I look at my budget, maybe I read a forecast or two. I run the numbers, I try to be objective.
That's the lie we all tell ourselves. We cling to that belief. But the source is very blunt here. In the real world, people don't make financial decisions on a spreadsheet. They make them at the dinner table or in a meeting room where personal history, pride, ego, and marketing all mix together.
So the real drivers are things like fear, greed, ego, and insecurity.
Right. Think about the last time you made a significant purchase or maybe a panicked decision to sell an investment. Was it because you ran a regression analysis? Or was it because you felt a sudden pit in your stomach?
Or you saw your neighbor get a new car and felt a little twinge of envy.
Exactly. It's usually the envy or the stomach pit, if we're being honest. The source has this great line that really stuck with me. Emotions cost more money than bad math.
That is a heavy statement.
It's profound. Let's break that down. A calculation error on your tax return might cost you a few percentage points. It's annoying, but, you survive.
Right.
But an emotional error like panic selling everything at the very bottom of a market crash because you're scared, or dumping your life savings into some trendy asset at the very top because you have FOMO, that can wipe you out completely.
So it's not a calculation error, it's a behavioral collapse.
Exactly. And this leads to a really interesting way to view market volatility. The source suggests we need to stop viewing market drops as a fine and start viewing them as a fee.
Wait, explain that distinction, a fine versus a fee.
So a fine is a penalty for doing something wrong, right? If you get a speeding ticket, it's because you broke the law. A lot of people view a portfolio dropping in value as a fine. They think, I must have made a mistake.
Okay, I can see that.
But Housel argues you should view it as an admission fee. Like, if you go to Disneyland, you pay a high ticket price. You don't get mad at the ticket booth, you pay it because you know that's the cost of the experience.
So volatility, the ups and downs, is just the price of admission for the returns you want over time.
Correct. And once you view it as a fee rather than a fine, you stop trying to fix it or run away from it. You just pay the fee and stay on the ride. The person with the high IQ thinks they can outsmart the volatility. The person with high behavioral control just accepts it.
That's a huge mental shift. Okay, moving on to rule number 2. This one really challenges how we judge other people. The rule is, context is everything. Or, as the source puts it, no one is crazy.
I love this rule because it forces us to practice empathy. We see people making financial decisions that look absolutely irrational to us. Maybe they're hoarding cash under a mattress, or maybe they're betting everything on high-risk stocks.
Oh, yeah.
And from the outside, we say, that's crazy. Why would they do that?
Right. I've seen friends buy some very questionable crypto coins, and I just want to shake them. It seems objectively nuts.
From your perspective, maybe. But the source argues that no one is actually crazy. They're just operating from a different set of experiences. People make decisions based on their personal history, their story. We are all, in a way, victims of the time and place we were born.
The source gives this great comparison of someone who grew up during a boom versus someone who grew up during a bust. Could we walk through that?
Sure. Imagine someone born in 1970. The S&P 500 increased almost tenfold during their teens and 20s. Their formative years taught them, viscerally, that the stock market is a wealth-generating machine.
So to them, investing is pure optimism.
It is. Now contrast that with someone born in, say, 1950. During their formative years, the market went nowhere. It was flat. And adjusted for inflation, it actually lost value.
So you have two intelligent people looking at the exact same graph today.
And one sees opportunity, the other sees a casino that just steals your money.
And neither is wrong.
Neither is wrong based on their lived experience. Their neural pathways were literally formed by different economic climates. The source uses the lottery ticket example, which I find really heartbreaking, but so illuminating.
This is about who buys the most lottery tickets, right? The lowest income households.
Yes. Statistically, they spend the most. To you or me, looking at the math, that looks completely irrational. People call it a tax on stupidity.
I've heard that, yeah.
But Housel asks us to step into their shoes. If you have no upward mobility, no real way to save your way out.
If you can't save your way to a down payment and your wages are stuck.
Exactly. Then the lottery is the only time you have a tangible hope of changing your life. They aren't crazy. They are buying a feeling of hope that you and I might get from our careers or our savings accounts.
That really changes how you look at the world. Before we judge someone else, or even judge ourselves, we have to ask, what story is driving this behavior?
It stops you from thinking there's one single rational way to do things. It lets you audit your own biography and ask, am I doing this because it's smart or because my parents were terrified of debt in the 90s?
Okay, so we've got emotions running the show and personal history dictating our logic. Now let's talk about the mechanics of how wealth is actually built. This brings us to rule number 3, the boring truth about growth.
This is where the source confronts our obsession with returns. If you watch financial news, it's all about who beat the market or what's the highest yielding asset. We obsess over the rate of return.
But the source argues we are looking at the wrong variable. It's not about the return, it's about the time.
Exactly. Compounding is the 8th wonder of the world, but it has a very strict requirement: patience. We aren't built to think exponentially, we think linearly. The classic example Housel uses is Warren Buffett.
Of course. Everyone studies Buffett's stock picks.
Yeah.
They want to know his secret formula for valuation.
But they miss the biggest factor. Warren Buffett started investing when he was 10 years old. He is now in his 90s. The source points out that something like 99% of his net worth was accumulated after his 50th birthday.
Wait, 99% after age 50?
Yes. If he had retired at 60 like a normal person, you would never have heard of him. He'd just be a prosperous old guy in Omaha. His skill wasn't just stock picking. His skill was longevity.
He just stayed in the game.
He survived. He didn't get wiped out. He didn't quit. And that leads to the concept of tails. In any given year, the market is mostly boring or scary. But over a decade, there are a few days, just a handful of days, that account for almost all the growth.
And if you get bored and leave, or you get scared and sell, You miss those tail
You
events.
miss everything. This sounds incredibly boring, though. The strategy is basically shut up and wait.
It is incredibly boring, and that's why it's so hard. Our brains crave novelty. We want action. But the source is telling us that patience is the real advantage that is vastly underestimated.
Most people disqualify themselves from the race because they get impatient and try to force a high return.
So the most powerful skill isn't intelligence or market analysis. It's the ability to sit on your hands and do nothing for a very long time.
It's the capacity to suffer through boredom. If you can endure looking like an idiot when your neighbor is making a killing on some speculative tech stock and you're just holding your boring index fund, you win.
The capacity to suffer through boredom, that should be on a motivational poster somewhere. Okay, let's move to rule number 4, which I think addresses a very specific type of modern anxiety. This is about defining the finish line.
This is a critical psychological hurdle. The source states, there is no finish line with money unless you create one.
And if you don't define enough, you will never have it.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
It is. We live in a world of comparison. Capitalism is amazing at generating wealth, but it's also amazing at generating envy. There is always someone with a bigger house, a faster car, or a higher net worth. If your goal is just more, you are on a treadmill that never stops.
Yeah. The source mentions that so many people lose everything, not because they had too little, but because they reach for a little more.
We see this all the time. The book alludes to stories like Rajat Gupta people who were already centimillionaires. They had reputation, freedom, unlimited money, and they engaged in insider trading to make a few million more.
They risked everything they had and needed for something they didn't have and didn't need.
Exactly, because they didn't have a concept of enough. They couldn't stop the goalposts from moving.
So is enough about settling? Is it about lowering your ambition?
No, and that's a common misconception. Enough isn't a number. It's a defensive strategy. It's a moat. Knowing when to stop protects you. It protects you from unnecessary risk, from stress, and from regret.
It's planting a flag and saying, I'm not going past this point because the risk just isn't worth it.
Precisely. If you can't look at your life and say, this is enough, you are vulnerable. You're vulnerable to greed, and greed is what kills wealth.
This leads us perfectly into the final rule, rule number 5, which might be my favorite because it completely changes how I walk down the street and look at the world. This is the visibility paradox.
Ah, yes. The distinction between being rich and being wealthy, and in this context, they are not the same thing at all.
Break it down for us, because I think we use those words interchangeably.
Okay, so when you see someone driving a $200,000 Ferrari, what do you know about their finances?
Well, usually you think, wow, that person is rich.
Wrong. The only data point you have, the only thing you know for a fact, is that they have $200,000 less than they did before they bought the car. Or more likely, they have $200,000 in debt.
Right. We see the stuff. We see the cars, the houses, the Instagram photos. That is lifestyle. That is being rich.
But true wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is the money that has not been spent. It's the savings in the bank. It's the investment accounts compounding quietly in the background. It's the options that haven't been exercised yet.
This is such a hard concept to grasp because we're visual creatures. We judge success by what is visible. But the source is saying that true wealth is invisible.
And that's why it's so hard to emulate. It's easy to emulate a lifestyle. You just go into debt and buy the same stuff. But you can't emulate wealth because you can't see it. You can't see the discipline, the savings rate, the patience.
This reminds me of the man in the car paradox from the source. I think everyone relates to this one.
Oh, it's a classic. It's the idea that when you see a nice car, you never think, wow, the guy driving that is cool. You look at the car and imagine yourself driving it thinking, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool.
Exactly. You don't care about him at all. You're just using his car to fantasize about your own status.
And the irony is, nobody cares about you either. They're all just looking at the car. So we spend all this money to buy admiration, but the transaction never actually happens.
So if wealth is invisible and it doesn't buy admiration, what is it actually good for? If you aren't showing it off, what's the point?
The point is freedom. The source defines wealth as savings, freedom, and options. It's the ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today.
Autonomy.
Autonomy. It's the ability to say no. To say no to a boss you hate, no to a shift you don't want to work, no to a desperate financial decision because you have a safety net. That is the invisible power of wealth.
So spending money makes you look impressive to strangers.
But saving money builds power.
Precisely. The ultimate flex isn't the flashy watch. The ultimate flex is control over your time. There is so much data showing that once your basic needs are met, more stuff doesn't make you happier. But control over your schedule, that is the highest dividend money pays.
And that brings us full circle to the behavior aspect.
Yeah.
If your behavior is driven by a need to impress others, by ego and insecurity,
Yeah.
you will spend money to show people how much you have.
But in doing so, you are destroying the very wealth you are trying to signal.
You're eroding your own freedom to buy the admiration of people who probably don't even care about you anyway. That's the tragedy of it. And that's why the smartest people can go broke, because their ego demands they display their success rather than their behavior building their freedom.
This has been such an enlightening deep dive. Let's just recap the journey we've been on because these are 5 rules that really rewrite the script.
So we started with the core premise. Money is not about math. It is all about behavior.
Rule 1, the myth of logic. We aren't spreadsheets. We are bundles of fear and greed, and managing those emotions is more important than your ability to read a balance sheet.
Rule 2, context is everything. No one is crazy. We're all just acting out our own personal histories. We need to judge less and understand more.
Rule 3, the boring truth. Time beats timing. The superpower is endurance, just staying in the game long enough for compounding to work its magic.
Rule 4, define the finish line. You have to know what enough is, or you'll risk everything for nothing.
And Rule 5, the visibility paradox. Wealth is what you don't see. It's not the car, it's the freedom.
The red thread connecting all of this is humility. You have to be humble enough to admit you aren't rational, humble enough to stop trying to impress strangers, and humble enough to just wait.
It's funny, we started this talking about geniuses versus ordinary people, and it turns out the ordinary person actually has the advantage if they can control their behavior.
Absolutely. If you can control your emotions, you can beat the genius who can't.
So here is a final thought for you to carry around this week. We talked about how wealth is invisible. That's a really hard pill to swallow in the Instagram age. So I want you to ask yourself this. How much of your current financial stress, the anxiety you feel right now, is coming from trying to maintain a lifestyle that other people can see?
And conversely, how much peace would you gain if you stopped trying to look rich and started building the invisible freedom that actually matters?
Check your own behavioral blueprint. It might be the most profitable thing you ever do. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.